Welcome to the Art of Composition. This is a video lecture brought to you by harmonicarmature.com. My name is James Kalman, and I am the owner of the website, The Art of Composition. And I've been away for a few years now. It's been, I want to say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I went offline because I needed a break, and I wanted to take a financial break. So over the period that I was offline, I got a lot of emails from artists and photographers wondering where I was I coming back, and so on. So I thought I would come back for at least another year. I renewed my website. I modified it quite a bit. I have a new user's guide, basically the same guide, but I've trimmed it down and I have a few new examples. So what I thought I would do is just do a video lecture going quickly through the user's guide like I did before, but I wanted to update it because, like I said, I've been away for so long and I'm a little bit rusty at this. So hopefully you won't judge me too harshly, but let me get started. I'm just going to quickly go through this and just point out a few things. And then moving forward, I will do video lectures like I've done in the past. I like to analyze art, whether it's a photograph or a drawing or painting, it doesn't matter to me. But my goal with this website has always been to teach the artist and photographer visual literacy skills, meaning composition. And I'll simply say this right up front because I hear this a lot, and I have to be honest, it really annoys me because one of the things that seems to never go away from the art world, even with the atelier training, is that composition is intuitive. And it's absolute nonsense. It's like any other skill. For those that hang on to that myth, and it is a myth, because regardless of what you're doing as a form of art, whether it is photography, drawing, or painting, you need those visual skills, those visual literacy skills, which Mandy Tice talks about a lot in her podcast, and I will mention her later on in the video. But you need to train yourself to learn how to see. And I know that sounds degrading in a sense, almost condescending, but it's really not, because I have been a photographer for 40 years. And it wasn't until I came across Myron Barnstone's videos that I realized that I wasn't that good at my craft, simply because I didn't know what to look for, what I was looking at, or how to arrange things in the frame. So this may be more than one part, but let me just kind of go through it anyway. And like I said, I apologize if I'm a little bit clumsy. It's been just so long since I've done this, so let me just go through it. All right, so this is just basically my table of contents, not a big deal. I have a section about my website to talk about what my goal is. And like I said, the goal is to teach the artist and photographer who wants to learn, by the way. If you don't want to learn, don't come to my website. And I'm going to be really honest about it, because I only want to work with people that actually want to learn composition. And like I said, there are people that feel that, it's all intuitive and they don't want to bother with it. That's fine. But, I'm not going to waste anybody's time if nobody wastes my time. So that's what I'm here for. I just want to train those that want to learn. Disclaimers, just a little bit about my website again. With my new website and what I've done over the past few years, even before I stopped doing this, I got away from dynamic symmetry because I realized there's not much of a market for it at this point. Dynamic symmetry is more complex to learn. However, I do have a ton of information and videos that I've done in the past on dynamic symmetry. I'm not saying I don't like it, but when it comes to learning this information for the first time, it's best to start out with the harmonic armature. And I'll talk about that as I do list the benefits of starting with the harmonic armature before diving into dynamic symmetry. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for now, let me just simply say that if you want to get a simple book on dynamic symmetry, you can download it here. It's called The Art of Composition, a simple application of dynamic symmetry. It's by Mikkel Jacobs. Now, I've seen others that teach dynamic symmetry. They kind of mock the book because it's so basic, but that's the point of it. When somebody comes back to me and goes, it's too juvenile or it's too basic, you have to understand that whenever you're learning something new, whether it's learning how to play an instrument or whatever, you have to start out at the beginning. Myron Barnstone used to say that learning composition was essentially Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Within the dynamic symmetry arena, Mikkel Jacobs' book is just that. They're simple diagrams. They're not meant to be masterworks, but they do make it easy for those that want to learn because it is simple. It shows you how to break down the frame, shows you working in different dynamic symmetry rectangles and so on. So for those that make fun of this book, I really have to say I find it somewhat ignorant because it tells me that you don't really understand the process of teaching something new to your students. So with that said, why I wrote a user's guide? Basically because I realized that I wasn't getting the information that I needed to take better photographs. So I dove into the Barnstone Studios DVDs. I learned everything I could. And then along the way, I realized that maybe I could help others by sharing this information. And that's why I have a user's guide. That's why I have a website and so on. All right, my views on marketing versus real world information. Again, because there is an arena out there that sells some of these products. Because I don't sell any of this stuff, I give it all away for free. It gives me a lot of freedom to be honest about a lot of things. And I don't let my information guide sales. And I do see this somewhat in this arena when it comes to making money off books and grids and all that. All right, about me. This is, a little bit about my background, where I went to college, some of the projects that I've worked on, the cameras that I've used to photograph. I'm a huge Leica fan. I've been shooting with Leica cameras since 1994. Started out with an R4, had an R5, R7, R8, M6, M7, M8, M9. I'm currently shooting with an M10. I have an MP240. Love the cameras, but with that said, the camera does not determine how good your photographs are, period. It's what you know about composition and visual literacy skills. All right, so for those that want a free grid pack, you can download one on my website. Here's the link here. I believe there's around 214 grids. I have the harmonic armature and I have all the dynamic symmetry grids. I don't get into the overlapped root rectangle thing. I find that almost in some sense obscene. There's just no way you can learn that information on your own. And I haven't really seen anybody outside of Barnstone who even knows how to apply that technique. So my grid pack is very simple. I like keeping things simple, but it's free. If you want to download it, just go to that link and you can download it there. My thoughts on other websites and educators that teach dynamic symmetry. I won't say too much about this. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't like, but you know what? Whatever. There's some variety out there. I like what I'm doing because I'm keeping it simple. Artists that want to learn the harmonic armature and dynamic symmetry, just a few suggestions. Some PDF guides. You can use my user's guide here. I have quite a few videos. I've deleted some of them, but I have a large majority of how to use the armature and, like I said, dynamic symmetry and so on. So you can pretty much find everything you need on my website. And again, it's free. I do take donations, so anybody that wants to help keep my website online, I'm always open to that, but everything is free. I don't charge for anything. So, all right. What I want to do here with this page, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. I want to talk about the benefits of the harmonic armature versus dynamic symmetry because it's really important for those that don't know anything about either system of design. So I'm going to go through each one of these in detail, and then I'll probably end the video shortly after that. All right, the benefits of the harmonic armature versus dynamic symmetry. The first thing, it's a one grid approach. With the harmonic armature, you're using one grid. You can use it on any canvas. Unlike dynamic symmetry, in dynamic symmetry, you're working within a series of specific sized rectangles, and the ratios are not your standard size when it comes to buying canvases and stuff like that. So the harmonic armature to me has so much more flexibility because, again, it doesn't matter the size of your canvas, whether it's square or an odd shaped rectangle. You can design using the harmonic armature in any size you want. All right, number two, the harmonic armature is easy to learn because you're using the same grid over and over and not dealing with all these different rectangles with different ratios. Learning is so much easier. I've seen people that don't know anything about the harmonic armature. They'll pick it up in a couple weeks and they're using it correctly. I have never seen that with dynamic symmetry. I think dynamic symmetry, you need a one-on-one personal trainer for that. You need somebody who is highly educated in that system of design. Like I said, I have videos on it, and it's not hard, but it's more complex. Okay, it's not hard, but it's just more complex. The third one, you don't have to learn overlapped root rectangles. I gotta be honest, I don't have much faith in these teachings because a lot of self-published books are based on this. I've seen dynamic symmetry books where the whole book is based on matching up the dominant diagonal and then overlapping specific root rectangles. That doesn't make much sense to me. And the analytical studies that I've seen using that method, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think it's going to make sense to anybody else, because you end up with hundreds and even thousands of lines on top of a drawing or a painting, and there's no way to decipher that. You know, I see comments online with people making fun of it. They're like, if you draw enough lines, something's going to line up. In reality, there is some truth to that, okay? If you can't explain what you're doing in a limited amount of lines in an analytical study, even if it's not going down every single step of the way or analyzing it 100%, you should only need a few lines to get an idea of what the artist is going for. And with this overlapped root rectangle thing, I'm telling you, nobody's going to get it. If you do want to learn it, Jacobs talks about it in one small section, and the way he explains it makes sense. But all the other stuff I've seen online, it's just, it really is whatever. I just can't even decipher it. All right, the next one. The interest in dynamic symmetry in photography is decreasing dramatically. I wrote this 2 years ago. The reality is it's almost non-existent, because the 1.5 rectangle, which is kind of the dominant format in photography outside of the square, you have the 1.5, which is the 35 millimeter format. The 1.5 is not a dynamic symmetry armature. So, as Adam Morelli has said in the past in one of his videos, it's like putting a key in a door that doesn't fit. So even though this gained a little bit of popularity maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it's kind of dead at this point. I don't teach dynamic symmetry in photography unless you're willing to crop your photographs to specific dynamic symmetry rectangles. And by the way, that's very difficult to do, because most of the time what you're cropping is not going to fit accurately inside those root rectangles. So it's just not a thing. Now, the harmonic armature you can use in photography quite easily, because again, it's a one grid approach and it fits any format. Whether it's 35 millimeter, 2 1/4, it doesn't matter. 16 by 9, whatever. It fits in any size rectangle or square. All right, the next one, no need for elaborate grid packs. The thing with grid packs, sometimes more is not better. And from what I've seen of what's out there on grid packs, it's so overwhelming. I don't even know what I would do with all those grids. I've been studying this information since 2008, so I don't even know what you would do with it. But, again, if you want to play around with all that, that's fine. All right, the harmonic armature offers the same amount of flexibility as dynamic symmetry. One of the complaints I saw online, somebody was saying that basically the harmonic armature is a beginner's composition tool. You've got to be kidding me. The harmonic armature has been around forever. There is a relationship between the harmonic armature and the musical scale. Juliet Aristides talks about this in her book, Classical Painting Atelier. That kind of statement, to me, you've lost a ton of credibility making statements like that, because in reality, the root rectangle's dynamic symmetry wasn't used during the Renaissance period. In fact, the Painter's Secret Geometry by Charles Boulot is based on the harmonic armature. So I guess if you're calling that a beginner's tool, so be it, but I definitely don't feel that way. And anybody that's used it doesn't feel that way. You can easily learn it online. As I've said before, because you're dealing with one grid, the learning curve is so much quicker. Like I said, I've seen people pick this up in a couple weeks. I've never actually seen somebody use dynamic symmetry that's come to my website. I've never had anybody actually use it. And that says a lot. When I stopped teaching dynamic symmetry, for the most part, I went to the harmonic armature. Everybody came back that wanted to use it was using it, whether it was drawing or painting or photography. It didn't matter, because it's so damn easy to learn and it's so flexible. All right, the next one. Analyzing art is easier and more accurate. I've been studying analyzing art for so many years. I started out analyzing stuff with dynamic symmetry, and it just never seemed to fit correctly. Something was off. Then I learned about the harmonic armature, and I started analyzing art with that, and I'm like, holy crap, things are starting to line up, meaning things are making sense. the angles of the composition, the divisions, everything kind of fell into place. And I was like, wow, this is great, because I feel like I'm actually learning something. And studying modern artists, classically trained artists, I realized they're using the same tool. People like Thomas Kegler, Connor Walton, Juliet Aristides. I know Mandy Tice uses. I'm not sure if she talks about it, but honestly, even though a lot of artists don't talk about it, if you're classically trained, I can't imagine that you're not using it, because it wouldn't make any sense. All right, the next one, frees up time to learn other art techniques. Because the harmonic armature is easy to learn, you don't have to spend a lifetime learning it. Like, you can study it for years, but you're not spending all your time learning composition. You can go learn other stuff, because classically trained artists, there's so much to learn there. So the harmonic armature kind of gives you a really good starting point to put together some really decent compositions, and then you can take it even further and you can get more complex as you go along, but it's not limiting like dynamic symmetry is. All right, the rule of thirds is a derivative of the harmonic armature. And despite what people say about the rule of thirds, and I kind of get it, I used to kind of trash it when I was teaching dynamic symmetry, but the reality is the rule of thirds is a legit concept. It's just very basic. Essentially, if you broke down the harmonic armature, you would have your rule of thirds grid. So you can't say it's not legit because it's part of the harmonic armature. It's just so basic and very limiting that you want to expand on the harmonic armature. All right, I think I'm going to stop here because I'm at the 20-minute mark. I will do more video lectures on this user's guide in the future, but thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, and it feels good to be back. And I hope those that have left my website come back and see what I've done with it, and we will continue to grow it from there.